In this video, I'll be talking about patterns, equations, and graphs and how they all fit together. The first thing we'll talk about is an ordered pair. So this thing in parentheses here, where it says 3, 10, that is called an ordered pair. And each number in here stands for one of the letters in the equation, and it goes in alphabetical order. So in this equation, we have a y and an x. And so because of alphabetical order, the first number is going to be the y, and the second number, the first number is going to be the x, and the second number will be the y. And so all we do to determine if 310 is a solution of this equation is we just plug in the values and then simplify. So instead of writing y, we're going to write 10 equals, and then 4, and then when a number is next to a letter, means multiplication. So the x represents 3 here. And we need to know, does 10 equal 4 times 3? It does not, so we would say 310 is not a solution of y equals 4x. Now down here we have, is 5, 20 a solution of the above equation? Okay, so now we're trying a different set of values. So we're trying 5 and 20. And again, the equation is y equals 4x. So instead of y, we're going to use 20. And instead of x, we'll use 5. And so we find out that 520 is a solution to this equation. So we would say yes, it is. Now, not all equations have x and y in them. Some equations might be like a and b. So we could say 3a equals 5b. And so if I gave you an ordered pair like 2, 5, and I said, is this a solution to this equation? Well, the 2 would be the a, and the 5 would be the b, because it's in alphabetical order. So between the two letters, the first one is always the earliest in the alphabet, and the second one is always the latest. So we would say 3 times 2 equals 5 times 5, and obviously this is not correct. So we would say 2, 5 is not a solution to this equation. Now let's say we got this word problem here. Both Carrie and her sister Kim were born on October 25th, but Kim was born 2 years before Carrie. How can you represent the relationship between Carrie's age and Kim's age using a table, an equation, and a graph? Okay, well, let's start with the table. So here we go. So we have a table for Carrie's and Kim's ages in years. So since Kim was born 2 years before Carrie, she is older by 2 years. So when Carrie's 1, Kim is 3. And when Carrie is 2, Kim is 4. And when Carrie is 3, Kim is 5, and so on. I've written up to 10 for Carrie and then 12 for Kim. So that's how you would show it using a table. Every time Kim is 2 years older than Carrie. Now, if we want to use an equation, first of all, we need to set up our variables. Anytime you use an equation, you have to set up your variables. I like to use variables that are obvious, that show what they mean. Some people like to use x and y, but I recommend against that. So we're going to let c equals Carrie's age, because c is the first letter in Carrie's name, and k equals Kim's age, since k is the first letter in Kim's name. And then using those two letters, we can show a relationship with an equation. So I wrote k equals c plus 2, since Kim's age is always 2 more than Carrie's age. So Kim is always c plus 2. So we can say when Carrie is 1, that's c, Kim is 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. When Carrie is 7, so 7, Kim would be 7 plus 2, or 9. So that's an equation that relates or shows the relationship between Carrie and Kim, or their ages. Alright, now we're going to show it using a graph. Once that It goes all the way down. Wow, that's slow. Okay. So, let me get rid of this. Alright, so here we have a graph here, and on the left side I've written Kim's age, and then on the bottom I've written Carrie's age. So using the information from the table above, we can see that when Carrie is 1, Kim is 3. I guess we'll get that a little higher. Well, we'll have to remember. So when Carrie is 1, Kim is 3. So Carrie, let's use red here. So when Carrie is 1, Kim is 3. And when Carrie is 2, Kim is 4. And when Carrie was 0, we didn't write that down, but Kim was 2, and so on. And so we can see as we make this graph that this is a straight line. We would call this a linear relationship. It's always going to be different by 2 years. Not all things have a linear relationship, and we're going to talk more about those later on in the year. So moving on, the table shows the length in centimeters of a scarf you are knitting. Suppose the pattern continues. How long is the scarf after 8 days? Draw a graph to answer the question. So I've made a graph here. Oftentimes when you draw a graph, you'll want to use grid paper because it's important to keep everything spaced properly, or else you don't get the true relationship, or you don't get a good picture of what the relationship is. So I need to have days going up to 8, because right here it says 8 days. So I'm going to need days to go to 8. So let's start here at 0. We'll go 2, 4, 6, and 8. Now this only goes up to 13, but I imagine once we get up to 8, this is going to be quite a bit bigger. Looks like it's increasing by 3 every time, so we could say 5, 16, and 6, 19, and 7, 22, and 8, 25. So we need this to go up by 25. Let's see, if I, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Alright, just for neatness, I'm going to make these, each line worth 2, so each line is going to be worth 2 inches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whoops, that's not right. That should be a 12. Let's try that again. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And we're going to need a couple extra lines here. So there's another one. So that'll be about 24, something like that. So you can see as I make the extension of this graph that it's much nicer when you have straight lines like on a grid paper. So that's why I recommend you make this on actual grid paper. But this will do because it's only going to be the last point or two. So on day 1, let me use a different color here. So day 1 we get a length of 4. So 1, 4. Day 2 we get 7. 2 goes to 7. That should be in between the 6 and the 8. And then 3 we get to 10. And that should be right here. And then 4 we get to 13. So that's going to be in between 12 and 14. 5 we get to 16. And 6 we get to 19. And 7 we get to 22, which would be right here. And then 8 we get to 25, which is probably right around here. And then again, this also is a linear relationship. There we go, something like that. That's not perfect, but something like that. So the answer, draw a graph to answer the question. After 8 days, we go up about 25 inches. Now, my arrow is kind of off there, but it's definitely going to be 25 inches. And that is it for tonight's video. Don't forget to answer the forum questions, Bjorn.